to our Zoom service, the Zoom service of the gathering of Northern Hills. I welcome you with the words of Mary Davis. We can't heal the world today, but we can begin with a voice of compassion, a heart of love, and an act of kindness. I want to direct you to the announcements that you received in your email for the Zoom, but I do have a couple of announcements to highlight and share with you. The first one is that Suzanne Bjorner and Ann Bobinik are going to have their Making Compassion Work Zoom meeting on Wednesday, this Wednesday, the January 13th, from 7 to 8. They will highlight Karen Armstrong's 12 steps to a compassionate life. Suzanne, should people contact you in some way to get or email you if they're interested in getting that Zoom link?
People who have already contacted us have received the link. And if you have not received a link, please, yes, contact me or Anne.
Okay, email. Okay, all right, thank you. And then the other announcement that we have is next Sunday's service. Peg Fox, I call her Peg, she's Margaret, but I call her Peg. She's the executive director of the Metropolitan Area Religious Coalition of Cincinnati, otherwise known as MARC. She will speak about its ongoing Court Watch program. Over much of 2020, MARC sent trained observers to witness court proceedings. Ms. Fox will share observations made as well as analysis provided through both UC and the Intercommunity Justice and Peace Center. Court Watch has the potential to seek both understanding and change in our judicial systems. I want to put in a plug for Peg. I've known Peg since I was about 13. We went to school together. She was a year ahead of me, but we knew each other in school. And I worked with her on a committee through MARC in the 70s. She is extremely knowledgeable. She has been with MARC, well, this was 1978, and I believe she's been there since, I don't know, before that, 75, 74, I don't know. And I don't know exactly how long she's been the director either. But she is extremely knowledgeable about what is going on in Cincinnati and is just a wealth of information. So I hope that you will come next week and hear what she has to say. So now it's time to light the chalice. And we'll light the chalice today.
Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision,
Thank you, Michael and Doug. Now Michael will play the prelude and opening hymn. It's time, this is a time to prepare our hearts, our minds, and our spirits for what we will experience this morning. If you wish, drop a stone in a bowl in your home or a virtual stone.
Though I may speak with bravest fire and have the gift
Thank you, Michael. Let's join together in our unison affirmation. We pledge to create a welcoming community that celebrates human diversity, encourages spiritual growth, fosters responsiveness to our world, and commits to the future of all children. And now we turn to Doug for his weekly message.
Thank you, Debbie, and thank you, Michael. The opening hymn this morning was, I hope, sets the tone for my message. And after the events of this past Wednesday, I realized I could not go forward with what I had originally intended as my message topic for this morning. I settled on a new topic and prepared a new message, which I then substantially changed again after further reflection. In all truth, I'm uncertain what to say this morning. Wednesday's events, as I'm sure they were for all of you, were the most shocking events in my life. I compare them to the events of September 11th, but the events this past Wednesday, I believe, were worse. Our way of life, our civil society, our rule of law, and our foundational belief in peaceful governance were attacked. Those who incited the insurrection and participated in it did not win, of course, but the fact that it even happened sets a frightening precedent for the future. As a minister, I'm first drawn to a message of total and absolute condemnation of what took place and those who participated. But I'm also drawn to a message that seeks in some way to encourage peace. The question I and many have right now is, how can peace be encouraged when many on the other side will not participate? When should we work for peace through empathy and listening and forgiveness? And when do we fight against violent and unreasoning forces as the only way to restore peace? And I'm unsure about an answer to that question. But after throwing out my first intended topic for this morning, I settled on a topic of compassion after hearing about Suzanne Bjorner's and Ann Bobinick's plans for a new discussion group on that subject. And I've since substantially revised even that as my anger has grown. I wonder, however, if compassion is not what is most needed in our nation to somehow create healing. As many of history's great spiritual prophets have taught, the response to hate and violence cannot be with more hate and violence. At some point, compassion and peace, as difficult and as counterintuitive as they may seem right now, are in truth the ways to end division and hatreds. My fury and my disgust with what happened is strong. But important for me right now is to try and shift my own thoughts and my own anger to thoughts of loving kindness and peace and nonviolence. I'm reminded of a minister who was counseling a couple who had sought his help to save their marriage. Their bitterness and open anger at one another seemed beyond repair. And after sharing all of the ways that each felt betrayed and scorned by the other, a contentious breakup seemed the only solution. But the minister, who had not said very much, simply told him that his personal way of living is to always err on the side of compassion. He asked the couple to do the same. As I've thought about that, the minister's suggestion seems the only way that decent and loving and spiritually minded people should respond to hatred and division. People do terrible things in life. But if there are at least some people who consciously speak and act with kindness, good will be put into the world. For me, erring on the side of compassion means I first must be compassionate to myself. Indeed, I can sometimes be far more critical of myself than I am with others, especially when I make a mistake or do something foolish. Now that self-critical part of me shows that I have yet to unconditionally love me. And some of that is due to vestiges of guilt and shame that I can still feel about being gay. Other parts come from having a difficult relationship with my dad, who I know would have preferred a different son, one less sensitive and more macho. But my struggles highlight the vital importance of being gentle with myself. And that's not just for my well-being. I've learned that for me to be compassionate to others, I first must be compassionate to me and my differences, imperfections, and failures. In other words, if I cannot see good in me, how can I see good in hateful and violent people? I've quoted in a past message the words of the famed drag queen, RuPaul. She says at the end of every one of her shows, quote, "Honey, if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love someone else?" End quote. Now, I suggest we ponder and reflect on her admonition as perhaps a stumbling block that many of us must overcome if we truly do want to try and err on the side of compassion, especially for those with whom we are very angry. One way to try and overcome feelings of anger right now, I think, is to listen to those on the other side. Many of them believe they've been marginalized by a society, a nation that does not hear them and does not try to empathize with what they feel. And as we know, empathy does not mean agreement. It simply means one is able to imagine themselves in the same situation as the other and how they feel. That's a hallmark for trying to achieve reconciliation and peace. Healing circles of listening to the heartfelt feelings, not the arguments, but the heartfelt feelings of another, is a way to build empathy, find common ground, show compassion, and hopefully build peace. And tragically, one of the Capitol Hill police officers was killed in his efforts to protect democracy and thereby protect all of us. And it pains me to repeat the brutality that he experienced. He was repeatedly beaten over the head with a fire extinguisher. How can I have empathy for his killers? How can any of us? And how can I have empathy for the man who incited his killing? I don't know. But I feel it's the right thing to do. And so now I try. Ashley Babbitt was the woman who was shot and killed during the failed insurrection and invasion. She was at the front of the mob breaking into the House floor. I have no intention to excuse Ms. Babbitt's actions. Others like her should be held accountable for their heinous actions. But part of a society's role is also, I believe, to listen to and understand why people act in bad ways. Ms. Babbitt served in the military for 14 years. She considered herself a patriotic person who had defended her country. But when she left the military, her work opportunities were limited. She struggled financially, right, while growing increasingly angry at what she believed are benefits given to undocumented immigrants and those on welfare, while she believed she and others were seemingly ignored. Her brother says she had felt unheard by the government and by wealthy elites. Only the president, she believed, seemed to understand. And so her actions at the Capitol were a tragically criminal way to be heard. We don't condone her behavior, but we can empathize and seek all the more to listen to and understand people like her as a way to build compassion and hopefully find some areas where we need to improve ourselves. It's equally compassionate to praise our enemies, even in small ways for what they do or have done, their work, their acts of kindness, or just appreciation for their humanity. For people like the woman killed, we should acknowledge their service to our nation, their suffering, and the causes of their anger and unreasonable thinking. Compassion shown to enemies might prompt compassion in them. We all know, I imagine, of South Africa's peace and reconciliation councils after the end of apartheid. Bishop Desmond Tutu and Nelson Mandela initiated those councils. Former white police officers were asked to appear before the council, and then they were told they could speak whatever's on their heart. And so they confessed to past acts of unspeakable torture and killing of Black people. And their honest confessions prompted Black forgiveness and peace. And that, for me, underscores our need to show unconditional love and respect to others. And as difficult as that may be, to our enemies. We must forgive all those who hurt us and let go of our anger. And that means showing empathy and compassion, which again does not mean approval. It means looking beyond someone's misdeeds to instead perceive what we all believe, their inherent worth and dignity as a human being. We are not to be doormats for the hurts that others cause. They need to experience consequences for wrong behavior, all while they are shown a higher way of acting and speaking. And after the events of this past Wednesday, it's difficult, extremely difficult for me to hold compassion for the president and his present and past support of racists and anti-Semites. One yet unidentified invader was wearing a t-shirt with the words "Camp Auschwitz" emblazoned on it. For Jewish people and the few remaining survivors of the Holocaust, this was beyond the pale. How could such hate that had killed 6 million Jews, be in the hallowed halls of democracy? Nevertheless, I suggest at least some empathy for the president and I admit to struggling greatly to suggest that. It's clear he's not fit for any elected office, much less as president. He should be impeached and convicted and banned from ever serving in any elected role. I believe he's suffering from profound emotional dysfunctions. He's a narcissist and a psychopath, unable to feel or show empathy for the hurt he causes. But that does not mean we should completely demonize him. His mental health issues had a cause. It's been documented that he was raised in a cold and strict environment where love was conditional. He was commanded by his father at a young age to be a fighter, never be a loser, and always hit back. Any weakness on his part was met with disdain and a lack of love by his dad. His niece suggests he was emotionally abused as a child. I'm not a psychologist, but the president's self-absorption, lack of empathy, and desire to fight back in nasty ways are the likely reflections of his wounded youth and a distant, abusive, and tyrannical father. And I've shared that I had a very, very marginally similar upbringing by my dad. He loved me, but it was often conditional. But long ago, I realized I could either stay stuck in my dysfunctions and blame them all on him, or I could work to overcome my shortcomings through compassion for myself and thus build back a measure of self-confidence and human decency. As challenging as it is, I encourage at least some level of empathy for Mr. Trump and the emotional wounds he suffered as a child. What he's done is evil, but he and the mob on Wednesday are not themselves evil, and that's an important spiritual distinction. If we believe, as we all do, in the first Unitarian Universalist principle of the ideal of the worth and dignity of every person, then we must believe that even about those we dislike. Some people ask me why I, as a Unitarian Universalist minister, talk so often about Jesus. An important reason why I do is because I love him as one of history's most compassionate people. He was acutely sensitive to the often unspoken feelings and hurts and brokenness of others, especially of supposedly bad people. Another of history's greatest people, Martin Luther King Jr., taught and practiced that kind of empathy. As Reverend King once preached, quote, "We must develop and maintain the capacity to forgive. He who is devoid of the power to forgive is devoid of the power to love. There is some good in the worst of us and some evil in the best of us. When we discover this, we are less prone to hate our enemies," end quote. Through his empathy, Jesus welcomed into his presence people considered unsavory and excluded by society: adulterers, thieves, cheaters, liars, prostitutes, and traitors. He said his ministry was not for the hypocrites who believe they are already perfect, but to reach out and show compassion to those who are broken and sometimes bad, which in truth is everyone. Jesus further empathized with those excluded from society for no reason other than they were different: the other able, the diseased, the disfigured, the mentally ill, the non-Jew, the atheist, and I believe the LGBTQ persons of his time. He also expressed strong solidarity with marginalized people, women, children, the meek, the weak, the poor, and the depressed. As a man, he was unafraid to cry at the suffering and death of others, no matter what they had done. As I pointed out in messages before, he was amazingly compassionate to the criminal who was executed alongside him. That man responded in amazement by noting that Jesus, an innocent man, was able to forgive and love a man like him. Jesus also amazingly forgave those who denied, demeaned, attacked, and even killed him, thus modeling that forgiveness is not about one's personal feelings of anger and hurt, but about showing compassionate empathy to evildoers, just as Dr. King advocated. Now, there's a well-known contemporary painting by an artist named Thomas Blackshear. It's a painting of Jesus, half supporting and half embracing a man who holds a hammer and nail in his hands. It's on the cover of this week's digital program that was sent on Thursday. The painting symbolically portrays the uncommon compassion Jesus is said to have shown those who are imperfect, different, hateful, or violent. When I first saw the painting many years ago, I could see myself as the man in Jesus's embrace. For me, it showed how if he were alive today, he would embrace me as someone worthy and loved, no matter my misdeeds, no matter my sexuality. As a real man who lived 2,000 years ago, Jesus would do the same today for any of us. And he'd do the same for Donald Trump and Wednesday's insurrectionist mob. Even as compassion, his compassion, would call them to a higher way. It's a powerful painting, not because it depicts a God, but because it shows astounding compassion for broken people. Ultimately, Jesus called us not to in any way worship him, but to follow his example. As I said, I truly struggle with how to feel about Mr. Trump and the insurrectionists. But in the end, I know I must do what the minister I earlier mentioned does. And I encourage the same for you. Doing what is good and right is never easy, but we must always err on the side of compassion. And I thank you for listening to me this morning. And I turn our service back over to Debbie Palmisano.
Thank you, Doug. I want to lead you in a meditation practice. It's a most abbreviated version of Tonglen, which is from this particular version is from the Tibetan Buddhist teacher, Pema Chodron. Tonglen practice is also known as taking and sending. Reverses our usual logic of avoiding suffering and seeking pleasure. In Tonglen practice, we visualize taking in the pain of others with every in-breath and sending out whatever will benefit them on the out-breath. In the process, we become liberated from age-old patterns of selfishness. We begin to feel love for both ourselves and others. And we begin to take care of ourselves and others. We breathe in for all of us, and we breathe out for all of us. So let's begin. First of all, rest your mind, close your eyes if you will, and rest your mind briefly for a couple of breaths. Breathe in and breathe out so that you can establish a state of openness or stillness. Now, as you breathe in a feeling of hot, dark, and heavy. And breathe out a feeling of cool, bright, and light. A sense of freshness. Breathe in heavy. Breathe out light. In and out. Today, I'm asking you to do Tonglen for people who we might consider our enemies, those who hurt you or others. Today, I'm asking us to do this Tonglen for the people who stormed the Capitol, for the president. Breathe in their pain and send them relief. Breathe in woundedness. Breathe out compassion. Breathe in confusion. Breathe out peace. Breathe in inadequacy. Breathe out love. Breathe in anger. Breathe out healing. Breathe in violent feelings. Breathe out hope. We'll continue for just a couple of minutes. Let's complete our meditation with the traditional words of the Buddhist metta or loving kindness prayer. May all be well. May all be peaceful and at ease. May all be happy. Just take a couple more breaths. Open your eyes. And let's continue with our service. It's time to discuss sharing our wealth. If you are a member of GNH, please take this time to financially support the work that we do. If you are a guest or a visitor, there's no need to donate. The gift of your presence is gift enough. To donate, please fill out and send a check to the office. Resolve to set up automatic donations directly from your bank. Use our instant online giving app, Givelify. That's giv.li/PHV85. And we thank you for your support.
Thanks, guys. So I was asked by Doug basically to do an encore of the song I did last week, which is A Little Bit of Everything by Dawes, because it so perfectly captures the human condition, the things that we all go through in life, and it's just important to remember that, you know, everyone has those struggles, literally everyone. So I basically I just added the lyrics so that you can read along as I'm singing it. But here it is, A Little Bit of Everything by Dawes. Great song.
With his back against the San Francisco traffic, on the bridge side that faces towards the jam, setting out to join a demographic, he hoists his first leg up over the rail. A phone call's made, police cars show up quickly. The sergeant slams his passenger door. He says, "Hey son, why don't you talk through this with me? Just tell me what you're doing it for." Oh, it's a little bit of everything. It's the mountains, it's the fog, it's the news at 6 o'clock. to a wedding she has scheduled for the fall. Her man says, baby, can I make an observation? You don't seem to be having any fun at all. She said, you just worry about your groomsmen and your shirt size. Rest assured that this is making me feel good. I think that love is so much easier than you realize. If you can give yourself to someone, then you should. Because it's a little bit of everything. The way you joke, the way you ache. It is getting up before you so I can watch you as you wake. So on that day in late November, it's not some stupid little ring. I'm giving a little bit of everything. It's a little bit of everything. It's a matador and a bull. It's a suggested daily dosage. It's the redwood west pole. All these psychics and all these doctors, they're all right, but they're all wrong. It's like trying to make out every word when you could simply move on. It's not some message written in the dark. It's some truth that no one's seen. It's a little bit of everything.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you, Doug, for requesting this song again. It's very apt. Now it's time for sharing our joys and sorrows. This is a spiritual time during which you may share a brief joy or sorrow. Please raise your hand and one of us will call on you.
Cheryl?
You need to unmute yourself, Cheryl.
A lot of you already know, but my golden, who
I can see.
oops, really?
My bad.
That's okay. My golden retriever, Brady, who's the one that I did pet therapy with, he had surgery on Christmas Eve on his throat, and he's doing very, very well. I know I posted some of that on Facebook, but he's old. He's 13, but they said he's like a puppy. So we went ahead with the surgery, and he's doing fantastic.
It's great.
That's good news. That really is a joy.
I picked him up on Christmas Day and was like, well, Merry Christmas. You got surgery.
Jack,
Can I just do a silly little joy?
please.
All this world of Zooming, I always kind of, and all the people on TV and whatever, I enjoy looking at the backgrounds behind people, even though I don't really have much of one. But Debbie, I have to notice in your pantry there, you've got one of my favorite things, a really solid product. It's got to be Kikkoman low sodium soy sauce.
Yeah, so you're looking in my pantry.
So anyway, that was just on my mind.
I have a joy, and I am so thankful for this beloved community and for the magic of Zoom and the ability to be together during this very difficult, now made more difficult time in history. So thank you for all the very, very smart people, smarter than me, who can figure this out. I appreciate it.
I see Diane Benedict.
And we have Robin too.
Hi guys. Sorry, you're seeing my bedroom wall behind me, but I'm laying in bed today. I have 3 out of 5 people in my house just got tested for COVID, so we're now in the siege. So we'll see how it's going. Everyone seems to have a mild case of whatever it is. I mean, it's enough to make us sick and tired, but not enough to make us have trouble breathing or anything like that. So if you guys could keep us in your thoughts and prayers for the next few weeks so that we don't have a massive yucky COVID. It's either COVID or it's mono, and I find that hilarious. My one child was diagnosed as having mono earlier this week, and I don't agree with the diagnosis because it's so close between mono and COVID. It really is almost the same symptoms, but because everybody has it and we don't share drinks, we don't usually kiss a whole lot in this house. So I'm not really sure how we would have caught mono. It's much more likely COVID, which is sad to say. But if you guys could keep us in your thoughts and prayers, we'd appreciate it.
Was Robert? Did
Oh.
Robert?
I think we had Robin first.
I just wanted to pretty much say what Debbie said and how grateful I am to be back in your company, and just it seems like really good timing considering it's a pretty sad time for everybody right now with. So I'm just really happy to be back here. And Sue, I don't know if you remember this. You remember my coffee mug?
Sue Klein's coffee mug she
I
made.
made it. Yeah, I just happened to be looking down at my coffee and thought of Sue. But anyway, I'm really grateful. Thanks, Doug, for your wise message, and Michael for your beautiful music, and Debbie, I really enjoyed the meditation. Thank you.
Let's see, Norian General.
Good morning, everybody. I want to thank the soup queen for feeding us. I appreciate that very much. It's always nice when someone takes care of the elderly. Okay, and Doug, I will also thank you very, very much for your extremely timely message. And you always do a fantastic job. Thank you, and I love you.
Thank you, General.
There's no one else that wants to add a joy or a sorrow today. I'd like to turn the program over to Michael for singing We Would Be One. Michael.
We would be one, as now we join in singing our hymn of love, to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater justice strive to make us free.
My friends, this has been one of the more moving services that we've had. We are in a very difficult time. And the solution is simple. It's love. It's not easy, but it's simple. I'd like to, if you will indulge me for just a few more moments, in a poem, it's short, I promise, from the book, and it's an anthology of mindfulness poems entitled Poetry of Presence. And this particular poem is called Wage Peace by Judith Hill. Wage peace with your breath. Breathe in firemen and rubble. Breathe out whole buildings and flocks of red-winged blackbirds. Breathe in terrorists and breathe out sleeping children and freshly mown fields. Breathe in confusion and breathe out maple trees. Breathe in the fallen and breathe out lifelong friendships intact. Wage peace with your listening. Hearing sirens, pray loud. Remember your tools, flower seeds, clothespins, clean rivers. Make soup. Play music. Memorize the words for thank you in 3 languages. Learn to knit and make a hat. Think of chaos as dancing raspberries. Imagine grief as the outbreath of beauty or the gesture of fish. Swim for the other side. Wage peace. Never has the world seemed so fresh and precious. Have a cup of tea and rejoice. Act as if armistice has already arrived. Celebrate today. That concludes our service. Thank you for being here.
I'm